forward.
Welcome to the Bitrate Podcast, conversation where a novice, me, and a professional have a conversation about the art and the business side of videography, photography, content creation as a whole. I know you guys want to get into the meat of the matter, the juicy stuff, but we're going to leave all the gear-related stuff and start out with like the softer side of stuff. So we're your hosts. I'm the novice in this situation. I'm Shaquille. And this is the man of the hour, the man with all the gaff tape, with all the USB-C cables, the guy that gives you all the motivation. This is Dwight.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi.
I don't know if I'm all of that, but yeah, I'm Dwight.
Yeah.
What was the reference? Novice and what?
Yeah, I'm the novice, and he's the professional.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So today we're just going to sit down and have a little chit-chat on the softer side of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking of starting with sort of a philosophical approach. Why is it that you want to do something like this? Because for me, again, I've said this before, I've not been jaded by everything that you've experienced. I'm pretty green, rose-colored glasses. I'm seeing all of this with fun and enthusiasm. I'm not trying to do this for money. So for me, it's just fun. Mm-hmm. That's my why right now. Okay. What's your why?
It's a good question. So let me start with being frank. I do it for the money, right? I enjoy it. I enjoy video production. I enjoy cameras overall. I like creating work and then seeing a clean image. I love the feedback I get from customers or clients when they get good work, right? When they get good quality work. So far as I typically will outdo what they pay me for, right? I'll typically go above and beyond. I have that principle in everything I do where I give more in value than I take in payment, right? So I know a lot of people in the industry will not agree with that. A lot of people in the industry will say, "Oh, I'm not giving them more than they pay for." That's fine. That's cool. That's your philosophy. But my philosophy is, in a lot of cases, I will give more in value because it feels good for me when I produce work that I'm proud of. So if you ask for a one camera shoot, if I know that a second camera will improve the value, increase the quality, make it better, and if it's not too much of a hassle for me, if I know I'm going to feel better at the end, knowing that I had a second camera, then I'll bring a second camera. Again, that might not, and it might not be for every single shoot or every single project, but I'm always looking for some way to kind of spice the deal, to kind of make it a little bit better than I was paid for.
What was the journey getting to this profound? Because right now that sounds that's super deep. I'm gonna have to reevaluate why I wanted to do this. I'm doing this purely because I want to like learn and dabble and figure out how does this work. This is something that I own. I can do. I can figure out. But there's not a lot of direction. Your reasons why seems like very pointed. Like I want my client to be satisfied. Mm-hmm. I want to go above and beyond. I want to give a lot of value.
Yeah.
Did you always feel like this from the jump, or?
Well, from the jump in this particular industry, because I have mentorship in. I mean, I own a different. I own a completely different business in a different industry, and I have mentors in that in that industry, in that business, that I have read a lot of business related books, a lot of people skills related books, a lot of leadership based books, and that's one of the principles that's consistent across the most successful people in most industries, right? So it's not a video production related skill or mindset. It's a business related mindset. The people who have the most give the most, and
I like that.
And so I think I just adopted that philosophy in this separate business that I own.
Yeah. Like you said, this has always been from jump how you've approached videography. Okay. Mm-hmm. So clearly I have some homework to do.
And if I mean, if I can, this isn't like a knock on anyone, and this is not like a brag or anything, but I would say it is one of the things that separate me from other people in the industry. I have heard. I mean, I work amongst professionals, and I work amongst a lot of people in the industry, and even though you define me as a professional, and I provide professional services, I wouldn't consider myself a veteran. I'm still learning a lot, especially as it relates to the business side of things, because that's one of the things you don't. It's harder to learn that on YouTube, for example, which we will hope to get into some of the business side of things,
Oh
some of
yeah,
the
for
things that's
sure.
harder to find
Yeah.
on the internet. Because as I'm learning stuff about the business side of things, I'm hoping I can share that with a lot of people. But the idea is you don't you you don't stand out in the industry by just having the latest gear or latest camera, or even necessarily the best quality of work, though that goes a long way. I think you stand out in the industry when people feel like you actually want to create like you want to do the best job that you can do for their project. I think that it's funny how that extra 2 or 3% that you give will separate you from everyone else.
I think that's a good segue into my next question when it comes to people skills, right? If someone is trying to be a videographer or photographer, invariably they're going to have to interact with people, right? They're going to have to engage in the business of peopling,
Yeah.
right? If someone is not that type of person innately, I think I lucked out because I'm generally the kind of person that will walk up to and try and interact with people. So I'm lucky in that regard. If you're not that kind of person, as a beginner, I'm thinking, I don't know how to tell someone just starting out how to approach someone and say hi. If I were to give tips, maybe start with someone who is close to you, someone you know, and maybe say hi, good morning one time, and then keep repeating that and increase the amount of times you do that. But that's not, again, novice advice. As someone who's interacted with a lot of persons, first of all, do you consider yourself like a people person?
No.
Right. So,
I'm
but
I'm not a people person in the standard definition
right.
of a people person. I am not going to come up to you and say hi.
Yeah. So
In
how do
fact,
you?
I would much rather be able to do my job without ever having to interact with people. But as it stands, I can't.
Right.
So my job does require me to interact with people. And when I say having people skills, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be extroverted. It doesn't mean you need to be the guy who walks up to everybody and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
That is a plus. I mean, that's a skill set in itself, and that has its merit. But what it means is, for example, I show up to a set and I see my client, the lead person or the contact person I'm going to introduce. I'm going to say, hey, I'm Dwight. We spoke, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to do this, and this, and this, right? But then if I see someone else, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to give them a good handshake, and I'm going to introduce myself. And if there's something about them I can compliment, I'm going to compliment them. If it's their jacket or if it's their hair or whatever, I love your hair, or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then in the doing of the job, especially if, for example, if I'm doing an interview or I'm doing some kind of person is doing a talking head and whatever, you have to encourage them, especially if you're not talent, like, on camera talent. You have to give encouragement. And so I'm gonna like, hey, that's a great take. I want a little more energy out of you, because I know, because the first time you did it, you got so much energy. So I want more of that, right? And so you're encouraging them and you're directing them and you're guiding them, but you're being kind,
Where
right?
did you think you got that from? Was it simply out of you had to brute? Did you have to brute force your way in that because it's just required
No,
for the
not
job?
really. I don't think it's hard. It's maybe not natural for some people, but I don't
Right.
think it's hard. Because we give compliments to everybody, whether you're introverted or extroverted. You give compliments to the people you like or the people you're close to.
Okay.
So just knowing how to give good compliments, appropriate compliments, is a skill set that needs to be. It's a soft skill, I guess. They don't teach that in school, I don't think, and I don't certainly don't teach it on any of the YouTube videos I've ever watched. But it's a soft skill that you kind of learn when you get around the people who are doing great in the industry. You kind of realize that, hey, you know what? They actually could just come and just set up the cameras and never say a word, but they don't, right? They're interacting with everybody. So many times you don't even know who's on set, right? You don't even know if that person will lead to another client. And so if you leave me alone on a set, I will just do my job and do a great job. But if I come across people, I'm going to say something. I'm going to interact with them. If somebody asks me, I'm going to be pleasant, even if it's what I think is kind of a dumb question. I'm not going to. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be a jerk, right? And so I'm nice to people on set. If you show up on set, on any set, on any job, if you show up to a project, and you're a nice guy, you have manners, and I mean, your parents probably told you manners take you through the world. But if you have manners and you're a little kinder to people and most other people, then you'll find yourself not being out of work too often.
Okay. So far, for those who are listening, I assume we're going to be having people listen to this. I don't know.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if anyone will listen to this.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if people are just listening to this and not seeing our faces. But these are outward facing behaviors for the space that have benefit you. I want to maybe take a step inwards. What's the mindset like? So we touched on the philosophy behind why you're doing this. You've talked about behaviors a little bit. What's that mindset that you need to have before you take on a job, before you interact with a client, before you get up to tackle this sort of thing? I want the internals. What's going on in your brain before you decide that this is something I'm going to do today and then do for a living? Yeah.
it's a good one. I think. Well, first of all, I kind of just described certain mindsets from, I think, more of a business owner entrepreneur mindset, and I have to make note that that doesn't have to be you. Like, you don't actually have to be a business owner to be a videographer,
Okay.
right? You don't have to be an entrepreneurial minded person to be in this industry. You could literally just be the person who just shows up on set. You're hired to do a particular thing, and you do that particular thing. I mean, you have to at least be like decent, like, don't be a jerk. But outside of that, you maybe don't have to be good at networking or saying hi to people. I think it's a benefit to you. But the business skills, the soft skills, will further your career, whether or not you plan to be a video production company owner or just a freelance videographer. So going back to your question, if I can remember the question,
Yeah, that mindset.
is so, all right, give me the question. Hit me with the question again.
So what's that mindset as a professional or as someone who's been doing it for a while? What's that mindset that you start out with to start your day, or that mindset that you use?
I don't know. Maybe it's for me. I'm just a get it done kind of guy.
Kind of grin and bear it.
Yeah, it's like just grind. I'm that grind guy. So let
See,
me.
that makes it kind of conflicting for someone like me, because on my side of the fence, I'm thinking this is all experimental, this is all fun, this might not matter anyway. I'm not doing it for a particular client. I'm not doing it for money reasons, at least.
Yeah, because you see, you're getting into the industry from a place where you actually like this,
Yeah.
right? And I'm somewhat in that category, but I don't do things just because I like it, right? It also has to make sense for me. So, for
Right.
example, there's this advice out there that says follow your passion and do what you love. I'm not going to tell you I disagree with it, and I'm not going to tell you I agree with it. I'm going to be completely politically correct right now. But I don't follow passion. I follow the market, right? I follow what the world is in demand of. So if we got to the stage, and I won't even go into the AI discussion, but if we got to the stage where somebody could just type on their phone a prompt and get exactly what they wanted in a video without ever having to interact with a videographer or a camera, then I probably will not be in this industry. I'm not going to be the guy who dies on the ship.
So
I'm not the captain who is going to be, I'm going down with the ship. No.
Oh, so
if ship's going down, I'm abandoning ship and I'm finding another ship that is
Okay.
afloat.
I see.
So, that being said, I am very invested in this industry, very invested in this particular skill set. But I do pay attention to what the market wants. And so, I'll give you an example. This was before I got so deep into what I'm doing right now. But throughout that 2019, 2020 era, that thing that we will not name,
Right.
right?
Yeah. What are we talking about?
Yeah, that demic,
Yeah.
you know, there was a huge need for people who wanted support for virtual events, right? And so I got good at providing technical support for online meetings, online events, right? And I made a lot of money doing that because I kind of already had some experience with online events, and I saw that people were moving in that direction when that demic hit. And so I'm like, what can I do that will add value, that the market will pay me for? And so I got good at that, and I provided that service. I wasn't the only one. I'm not going to be like I'm a genius and I'm like I innovated and I made this new way of doing things. But I was one of the early adopters for like online event support technician type roles, right? And so I got a lot of work and clients doing that. Now, as the world shifted back to going outside and having in-person meetings, well, before the world shifted back to that, I'm like, I think this thing is going to end at some point, right? I think people are going to go outside without masks at some point. And so we might start having meetings, but there is that online component that people are not going to neglect. So maybe there is a space for hybrid events. And so I started like learning what would I need, what equipment would I need, what hardware, what software would I need to learn and get good at, so I could provide support for an online and a live event and somehow integrate that into this new thing called hybrid events, right? Hybrid events, I don't think used to be a term until 2021, 2022, some about that. And so this is, to cut the long story a little shorter, is I pay attention to the waves and to the direction that the market is going, and I kind of adapt and figure out how I can monetize, how I can still be relevant. You know,
If you could, for the benefit of our listeners or viewers, if you could distill that down for someone like me, who's, I'm not necessarily watching where the ball will be. I'm sort of enjoying the moment now because I'm very invested in learning as much as I can now, absorbing as much as I can right now, because all of it is very new to me, very overwhelming. So, how do I slowly release my grip on being whimsical and focused more on, well, this trend might end or the demands of the market might change and I need to watch where it's going. How do you train someone like me to start watching trends instead of simply basking in?
well, it kind of depends on. I don't want to say desperation, but it kind of depends on, is this your bread and butter, right? Is this what I need to do to eat? If you're doing it for a hobby, then who gives a crap where the market's going? You're doing it because you like it. right? And maybe you don't even need anyone to watch it. You're just doing it because you enjoy doing it, right? And hopefully add value to one person in whatever video you create. So in the beginning, when I was doing videos, when I was creating videos for just me and my personal use and my personal stuff and my personal life, I didn't necessarily care about what people wanted. I still did good work and I did good quality, and I'm like, cool, this looks good, and it looked good for me. And I show it to my family, and I show it to people around me, and they're like, oh, that's really good. And maybe some people even said, hey, you should probably do this as a job. Just looking at exposure as our sunlight changes. All right, I'm going to be a nerd, and I'm going to
Adjust.
adjust exposure
For sure, for sure, for sure.
in the middle of our podcast because
Heck yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Back to behaviors.
Yeah, so I was saying, so for example, you do it as a hobby, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter if your goal is to just do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But if you do plan to at some point monetize and offer this service to other people, then you do have to pay attention to where the market's going, you know, and can you provide this as a skill, or will people pay you for this, you know?
How organized would you say you have to be to enter into a field like this?
I don't. I'm never quite concerned about
If you had,
anything you have to be
yeah,
to get in. I'm more concerned about willingness to become, because I am not by default an organized person,
right,
and so I'm not by default a detail oriented person. I'm not by default, like I mentioned, a people person. But these are all skill sets that you can learn if you have willingness. And so I'm not so much concerned about what you have, what you are going into it. It's just how willing you are to realize that, okay, I need to be organized, so I'll become organized. How can I be more organized, right? So for example, for me, and you're in my studio right now, just now, so you saw how disorganized my studio was.
it's not as bad as you think it is.
You know, no, it's actually interesting because when you came in, it's like, oh wow, this place is really organized.
Yeah, I'm like,
and for me, it was a mess because I am typically like, I have a place for every piece of gear, and they were out of place. I know where they are, but for me, my brain and my efficiency has to have things where they're supposed to be. I'm I'm doing too many things to be searching for a piece of cable, right? A particular cable or a particular connection. And so I try to keep my studio, my gear as organized as possible. I have crates for lighting gear, crates for audio gear, for HDMI cables, power cables, audio cables. I have bags for cameras. I have bags for lens. I have bags for stands. I have shelves for stands and modifiers and tripods and all that kind of stuff. And so I try to keep everything where they're supposed to be. Some of the times I'm just doing back-to-back projects, so I don't get to stop and reorganize. But as soon as I get a breather, I'm putting things where they belong, because that makes me more efficient.
Does someone need to be, well, since we've gone over what you need to be and how you need to become, I'm curious about like troubleshooting, like on the job, on the fly, troubleshooting aptitude. If something goes wrong, can you fix that issue?
What's interesting
Is this also something that you get from practice, or is this something innate, you think?
this is a good question. I think for me it's innate, meaning it's one of my natural skill sets is troubleshooting and problem solving and fixing things. I can almost, like, my wife will tell you, she'll have a problem and she's freaking out, and she gives me the thing and I just press one thing, and I figured, like, just before I came here, my daughter had a remote control car, right? And it had the remote uses batteries, so so I put the batteries in there, and it was working. And then like 3 minutes later, she comes back to me and it's not working. You're pressing the buttons and it's not moving the cars. And so I press the buttons, both buttons, and it's not working. And so my first instinct is open the battery and look at open the door and look at the batteries, and open the door and sure enough, the batteries were turned the wrong way. So chances are, I'm assuming the remote control fell and she put the batteries back in the correct order, matching order, right? That's what whole batteries should go in matching order. So I just flipped the battery and it worked.
Nice.
So it's a natural. I'm very good at problem solving and troubleshooting and finding solutions to a thing. I'm a sucker for redundancy, and so if something is not working, my instinct or my I go through a list of things to do, things to check. So if I plug in an audio, let's say I plug in a mic, and by the way, I do also have audio visual expertise, so audio engineering for live events, projecting screens and all that kind of stuff. I have that experience. So if I plug in a cable, for example, from a laptop to a projector, and we're not getting a feed, I'm going through the checklist. All right, is the cables on both ends plugged in properly? Right. So we check that. We make sure they're nice and snug. Yes. No signal. All right. Is the cable working? Well, for some of the cables we use, they're omnidirectional. Is it omni or
Bidirectional?
no, one directional? Right. Is that omni?
Unidirectional?
Unidirectional. Right. Whatever. They're
Someone
directional.
check us.
They're directional. So one cable has to go into the source, and the next cable goes into the display.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the next thing I'll check. Is the display, is the projector getting the display part of the cable, and is the laptop getting the source part of the cable? Check that. That works. All right, cool. Maybe the cable's faulty. Let's try another cable. Try that cable. Still not working. All right, maybe there's a software glitch happening with the laptop where it's not reading the cable. So maybe the laptop needs a restart. Restart the laptop and it's not working. Maybe the laptop does not like directional cables. So let's get a regular HDMI cable that can go either direction. I'll try that. That usually solves the problem. So there's a checklist of things. I usually start with the cheapest part of the chain. The cheapest part of the chain really is most of the time the cables.
Yeah.
So I don't want to assume that, the projector not work, because that's an expensive replacement. I don't want to assume that the laptop's not working. That's an expensive replacement. But the cable, if I can blame the cable, I can replace the cable.
Yeah.
And so I have this, I guess it's just, so you asked the question, it is partially innate, I think, the ability to troubleshoot quickly and calmly, because that's one of the skill sets I think is really beneficial to me, is that I have the ability to stay calm under pressure. And so if I were your pilot on a plane and the plane is going down, you would know by looking on my face.
Right. You'd only know when we're in the
You'd
water.
only know when we hit.
Yeah,
You're
when
like,
land.
yeah, when you're like,
Where am I?
this is
Not here.
This is pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I think mostly because I don't have a lot of processes that I have to keep troubleshooting. My setup is very, very simple. It's very light. It's very compact. I don't need to troubleshoot too many things. So that's just going to have to be something I experience as I go along, or as I come up against these things. I want to pivot, if that's okay, to trends, like big trends. Because we've already covered the kind of person you would be willing to become on the inside, why it is that you're doing this. It's all very soft, mushy, sentimental stuff. I take your point that if we need to look at market trends, like what people find valuable, what people are willing to pay for, is there something that you see clients looking for or pivoting to that somebody like me can take advantage of? Because I just think, it's all short form now, or it's because I've had more success there. It's probably just easier to edit a video for a short form platform, I just feel everyone's there. I don't know if you see something that I don't see
So
in that space.
that's
Like,
a
what
good.
trends do
I
you
mean,
see?
it's a good question. I actually am seeing a lot more short form requests, right? So a lot
Oh,
more
okay.
clients are requesting short form content. Like everything has to be under a minute, like 1 minute, 30 seconds tops. Everything has to be. I mean, some social media will still accept wide format, but a lot of it is now shifting to vertical format. But in terms of content itself, a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses and even large companies, I think, are trying to be relatable. And so they're using content, they're creating content that's relatable to, I guess, maybe the youngest set of, or at least if they're creating content to go on Instagram, then they, in their minds, they're like, all right, the age demographic for Instagram is, let's say, I don't know, right now probably 20 to 40, right? TikTok is a little younger, maybe 12 to like 25 or 30, right? So I don't know the numbers for sure, but I know the marketing geniuses in these companies are looking at these demographics and they're like, all right, what's relatable for TikTok, right? TikTok is all the fun, gimmicky, humorous content that has like a really strong hook in the first 3 seconds, right? Sometimes the hook is the music. So if a song is trending and everybody's dancing to that song, then they're gonna try to use that song in their content, right? And so I think that's the idea. Like people, like companies are looking to be relatable. So you want the big name companies. They want that to be able to relate to the 18-year-olds. So they're creating content for those short form content to relate to the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, if that is a part of their target market. But they're not going to put that same content on Facebook, probably. They might,
Or LinkedIn?
yeah, or LinkedIn. They're not going to put that same content on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Facebook because they know Facebook and LinkedIn is a little older of a demographic and more professional,
Right. It's like
polished,
client, corporate.
corporate type content. So they're creating content for the spaces that they think the majority of their clients will be.
Yeah. Should we pause? Because
No,
is it dying?
no, it's
Oh,
good.
when it's ready, it's okay.
Ready, it's recording. Yeah,
Oh, internally.
yeah.
Okay.
Ready, it's recording.
So
So they're full batteries, so we should have at least
right.
3-4 hours.
So I assume we're just gonna cut that out there. This.
Or not. We might leave it in. Who knows?
Right. We leave it in. Leave it
Yeah.
in. As adding to the point you made about relatability, what I've found, again, you can call me out on this or you can add to this because what works for me is like faces, humans. When it comes to
Right.
relatability, people
Right.
like
So that's one of the
faces.
things. So a lot, they're putting more faces. It's not just about their product.
Yeah.
It's about somebody using your product. So I was even having this conversation yesterday. I'm not going to call names, but there's this chicken restaurant, right? Sell fried chicken, and I saw an ad from them the other day, and their ad was just animations of their food. Right, so they had different menu items, and it's just animating, and it's moving, and it's colorful, and it's nice, cool, pretty. And then there's this not other fried chicken brand, very popular, that everybody knows. That'll probably have the longest lines on a weekend. Their ad is somebody biting into that chicken, and you're hearing the crunch, and you're seeing the smile, and you're seeing the steam coming off the chicken, and it's well lit, and it's like just beautiful. But it's people. I don't just want to see a fried chicken. I want to see somebody biting into it. I want to see when they tear the crust, the crunchy crust, and I see the meaty inside. That's what I want to see.
You spend a lot of time watching this.
No, it's funny because I was wondering, because when I was having the chicken from this newer company that I will not name, I was like, this chicken is, this was my first time having the chicken. I was like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Why isn't it full? Why isn't the restaurant full? That's what I was thinking. The restaurant was empty. I walked in and I got through the same time. While the other brand, which we won't name, had a long ass line, backed up, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, maybe it's a little better, but it's not that much better.
Right.
It's not so much better. I was thinking that this fried chicken is so good that I would actually, I mean, if the line at the other place is long, I'd just come over here and buy this chicken. And if it's even if it's just marginally longer, I'd just come over here and buy a chicken because it's good enough that I wouldn't feel like I'm missing out on anything by not going to the other place. So I'm like, why is it such a drastic difference? One, I mean, obviously it's brand identity. So there's one brand that's been around for ages, and then there's the other brand that's new.
Right.
But the other thing I think is I just look, because it was literally the day before that I saw their ad, and I'm like, that's kind of lame, you know. And so I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a videographer and looking at the content, and maybe I'm looking at how I could make money.
Right.
If this place actually would let me do their video, then they'd make more money. I'm not saying that, but maybe. But I just know for sure when you include people in a video, it's more relatable for people, and people actually pay more attention to.
Do you think about in the vein of authenticity, like a personality, like big personality?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I don't think it has to be. It's cool when they've recognized the face. People like.
No, by personality, I don't mean like a celebrity. I mean, if the person you're watching with the content has a particular kind of personality, like they're funny or they're very eccentric, or
I think you mix that in there for sure. I mean, I'm not a brand expert. I'm not a marketing expert at all. I'm just a human who engages with content, and I know what content gets me to buy. I know what content resonates with me. So yeah, having a familiar face or having a like one of those, I guess, influencers who are funny. I mean, those help, especially with the younger audience. Some of the times, I'm watching a piece of, I'm like very old. I'm like behind time. Somebody I'll see an ad and someone says, "Oh, that's so and so," and I'm like, "Who?" You know, I'll be like, "You don't know so and so," and I'm like,
I agree. 100%. We're on the same Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Listen, I agree. I'm having a harder time doing it because personally, just on my own socials, I find that when I sit down and talk about silly things, the video gets way more engagement than if I were to sit down and have a real life interview, respectable conversation with someone. People are like, this is cool. But you say that silly stuff that you said, and you were using a banana as a mic, people are like, yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I want that. Give me more of that, please.
But, and again,
why?
Again, I am not an expert in marketing. However, I also post content for my own business and for me. And number of engagement does not always equal to number of sales. So,
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you that if your video, like if one of your videos is getting more likes and more views, it means that that's the kind of content you need to always post. Because some of my lower engaged, I can think of like 3 of my lowest engagement posts raking in millions of dollars.
Right. Okay.
Of sales.
I'm glad
So some of the ones with thousands of views and hundreds of likes, 0.
So this is obviously the bridge. Really glad I get the opportunity to talk to you about something like this. I've been thinking more and more, if I'm to continue along this line, right, to take either videography or editing seriously, I have to start thinking about like conversion. How is it that I post a piece of content that is marketing or presenting an idea, a story around a product or service? How does that lead to dollars and cents? I'm doing this now just for the experience. And I can't yet flip that switch mentally to get to where you are, where it's like, I want to be strategic with everything that I'm posting. I want to post so that I get enough engagement so that I can I don't know, sell a little course
Yeah.
or have some merch
Yeah.
or something when we can. Should I even be thinking along these lines yet? Should I just get more reps in?
Well, yeah, I think there's something to be said for getting your reps in. Just post. I don't understand it. I'm not even gonna pretend like I understand this algorithm thing.
Right.
I don't get it. Like I said, some of the posts that I'm like, yeah, for sure this gonna be the money maker.
Yeah.
Nothing. Crickets.
Yeah.
Right? And then for some posts I'm just like, just post it just because.
Yeah.
And then I get someone reaching out like, hey, can you do something like that for me? I'm like, interesting. So I'm not the content marketing guru. I'm just watching how some of my content behaves and some of the content that I do for other people. One of the services I do offer within my company is social media marketing and social media management. I don't do it, so I have people within the company who do it. So you couldn't ask me about it because I'm clueless. I've been running my own Instagram for quite a few years, and I've gotten sales from posts that I don't understand why this one got the sale.
Yeah.
And I've gotten sale from like I said, this for sure going to sell something.
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
So for people who are very upset in the comments, we're going to be like, oh, these guys are talking like they know everything. Listen, we never did tell you, so we didn't know everything.
Yeah.
We're just two people.
I'm sorry, you probably came to the wrong place.
Right. We're just two people having a conversation about our own experiences. As a novice, he's a bit more experienced. That's all we're doing. We're not telling you, oh, this is the secret to unlock the algorithm and now you're making millions of dollars. Listen, if you find it,
Tell me. Please.
Right.
Put it in the comments.
Please.
Do. I beg your comment. Try to figure it out myself.
This is just our own experiences
Yeah.
laid out over time. Hopefully, we can get more people to weigh in on stuff like this. But just relax.
And this is a good time to tell you if you like in the podcast so far.
right,
You know,
because I
it's
realize
like,
people don't like it if
Yeah, there's
you
like
don't tell them.
there's this thing down at the bottom left.
Yeah,
It's called subscribe.
crazy. Just hit that. Just
And you know what? Guess what? For a limited time only, it's free.
yeah.
Yeah, it's free to subscribe.
You don't know when they're gonna start charging you for stuff like this.
Yeah, and if you hit the like button, you might
Yeah.
be entered into a raffle.
Who knows?
Keyword like.
Just
Keyword might.
just tickle it. Just tickle it. Just
Yeah.
do a little tickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. So
And while you're there, the bell.
bring that. So you know every time that we do something like this, you're here. So other trends. As someone who's, let's say, private. I'm a private guy. I like to keep my life a little bit to myself. I find a lot in the vein of authenticity, relatability. People want to open up. People invite a lot of people into their personal world. I think it's way too personal.
So many times, I think they get way too.
Right.
They put too much things out on the internet.
Right.
Personally.
Do you take that into consideration when you you approach clients, one, for their own marketing, and two, for your own marketing? Do you, I don't know, share more personal things about yourself, or do you encourage your clients to do that? I know that might be a multi-layered
Personally,
question.
I like segmenting things.
Yeah.
So I have a personal Instagram page, for example, and a business Instagram page. And some of the times I'll cross post, right? I don't even know if that makes sense for the algorithm. I don't even know if it makes sense marketing wise. But I feel like people like when they can put a face to a company. They like when they can put some personality to the face behind the company. And so I have kids and I'm married, and so some of the times that might come across on my business page, but very rarely. I do like to keep things segmented, so I don't post so much family stuff on my business page, but I will have a little tiny bit of sprinkle of that.
Okay.
Just because maybe it's just how I'm wired. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I do, if I'm engaging with a company, for example, liking the person behind the company helps.
Yeah.
Right? So if I see that this person is, they're actually cool. Like, in a personal life, they're actually cool. But I don't necessarily need to go on your company page and say that. If I go on your company page and there's like a tag to your personal page, and I go to your personal page and I say what you're like as a person, then I think that's cool. But I personally like to say a little bit of segmentation.
Yeah.
For you, for the person I'm going to buy from. So I'm thinking, obviously I'm creating content for people,
Yeah.
but I'm a consumer myself. And so most of the times I want to see the product or service that I'm purchasing in action, right? I want to see the company performing that product or service. But a little bit of, all right, give you an example. I did a video for a manufacturing company locally, and that video involved us going inside their uh, manufacturing plants and capturing some of the processes behind the plants. And me as a consumer got more trust from just seeing the process of the things being made, because I'm like, I don't know what they're putting in the thing. But when I got behind the scenes and saw what they were putting in the thing, I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is good stuff. They're not doing anything weird here. So in my mind, I'm like, if more people saw the behind the scenes of a manufacturing plant or a manufacturing company, I think that's good content. Because it's like if I'm buying a can of corn and I see that the only, like, I mean, yeah, you put the ingredients on the back, but who knows,
Right.
right? But when I go in there and I see you put the can of corn and I see the water going there and I see I don't know what else going there, but to me, and then I see people actually doing it, right? There's actual people touching the corn, touching the can. Obviously, everything is sterilized,
Sure,
and clean,
sure.
and
Yeah.
facilities clean, and they're very big on their safety processes and all that. But when I'm seeing all of that, when I have to go in there and I have to scrub up and put on gloves and cover everything up to my eyelash, I'm like, good, I can trust the processes behind this company. I think that helps. So there's vulnerability. There's a vulnerability for the company, but there's transparency for, because those words are used interchangeably. I think vulnerability is more on the company side, because for them they're being vulnerable.
Sure.
But for the client side, it looks like transparency.
So
Because I get to peep in your window and see what's going on
yeah,
on the inside.
peep in people's windows, guys.
Yeah, that's definitely recommended.
Of course. So to make this applicable to people who are starting out like me, it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, to share a little bit of the
Am I
behind the
answering
scenes.
any of your questions?
I feel you are. At least it's gaining value for me. It's providing value for me.
Because sometimes my brain goes off and I don't
The
even know if I'm
bits,
answering.
the bits of the story that work for me, they work. They work.
Okay, cool.
So to make it, to like distill it down to people who are listening, who are watching, it's okay to share a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes. But for you, in your opinion,
That, for example,
yeah,
for my industry at least, BTS, I didn't know what that word meant probably 2 years ago.
yeah,
But BTS content is one of the most valuable content to me.
oh yeah,
Right now. If I go on a job and I don't have any behind the scenes, I am like, I feel worthless. It's like I did a job, I executed that job flawlessly, but I didn't have any content, right? And it's like, it's because, and again, I don't understand the algorithm, this social media platforms. I don't know how they work. I'm just theorizing based off of my own behavior on my own pages. My pages seem to like some level of consistent posting, right? Maybe it's not every day, but the algorithm seems to push pages that have some level of consistency up on people's feeds.
yeah.
So if you're posting once every 2 months versus me who's posting once every week, when you go on my feed, it's not just that you're going to see more of my, it's not just because I'm posting more that you're seeing more. It's just because I'm coming to the door, I'm knocking on the door more often, so the algorithm is like, okay. And then people are interacting with that. So the algorithm is thinking, okay, people like this guy or this company because they keep interacting with it. Right? Again, I'm just theorizing.
Sure.
But What was your question?
I think I forgot. But
Like,
we were on trends. So just to recap, we might be winding down. If you have any questions for me, we started out with why, right? Why is it that you're doing something like this? Why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Two, what kind of mindset do you need to enter to foray into this sort of thing, both as someone who's just starting out and someone who's already been there, been around the block a couple of times. Are there a couple of behaviors that you need to have? And I've understood that it's not necessarily that you need to become this thing. It's just, are you willing to evolve into these types of behavior, being like a troubleshooter or someone who's cool under pressure, someone who is willing to interact with people more often.
All right. So because of how my brain works, I have to take them bit by bit. So recapping why you want to do this, I think you have to have some level of selfish motivation, which for me, I mean, it puts food on the table, so I make money, so cool. I don't know why the heck I chose this career, because it's extremely expensive.
Yes.
I'm looking directly in the camera. So this is like I'm looking directly in that lens.
Yeah, it
that
costs
costs
a
so
lot.
much money.
It's a lot of money.
While I say this, I don't know why it was gonna be like a mason, and it, like I just buy a hammer drill, and I buy one hammer drill that lasts for 20 years, and all the masons who are watching this are like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about.
Hammer drills. Buy them.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that every industry thinks that their industry is very expensive.
Yeah,
But I know for
especially
sure.
when you're specializing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that this is expensive because these tools, I mean, if you buy the right stuff, they'll have like 15-year, 20-year lifespan. But those tools are like way out of the reach of most people. Like, if, for example, I mean, we're not going to get into gear, but if you buy an Arri Alexa camera, there's Arri Alexa cameras that are 15, 20 years old that are shooting Hollywood movies. All right? There's probably Sony cameras who that have that shelf life as well. Maybe the Venice. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for the cameras that I can afford, and I think most people can afford, you probably will get 5, 6, 7, 8 years out of that. Right? That's still decent. That's still a long career. But then it's also there's things that are evolving, that are constantly changing. For example, 10 years ago, you didn't have these powerful LED lights that can overpower the sun. Now we're talking about like 5,000 watt lights that you can even put on a whole circuit, that are LED, and so people who bought the 5,000 watt HMI lights for $20,000 20 years ago, they're like, because those are way more expensive, create way more heat, and so whatever it is, technology is getting better to the point where good things are getting more affordable. Good quality stuff are getting more affordable because people are shooting movies with $3,000 cameras, and it's good quality stuff. So I mean, we're living in a world where things are getting more affordable, but at the same time, it's a very expensive industry, and so if you're going to get involved, you have to be able to find a way to make money doing it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if I have the answer to how exactly you will make money doing it. I think, from my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I think you have to find a niche that people will pay for. So it's not just, I don't think you should just be a videographer. Full stop. I think you should be, if you're a wedding videographer, be a wedding videographer and be the best damn wedding videographer you are. Like, you can be. Like, shout out to Justin Porter Media. Like, he's like the GOAT as it relates. In my mind, I don't know all of them, but in terms of the guys that are putting content on the internet, Justin Porter Media is like and there's people who will tell you, oh yeah, okay, can't make money as a wedding videographer. That guy has I don't know his business, but I'm sure he's making 6 figures in his business, right? At least. And so he's found a way to make wedding videos, wedding films extremely profitable for him.
Yeah.
And then there's the corporate videographer who they just do corporate style interviews, corporate style brand stores stuff. That's more the direction that I go towards. Then there's the event guy who's like capturing coverage of parties and concerts and that kind of stuff. And so I don't think you should do everything.
Yeah.
You should be able to do a little bit of everything.
Right.
But you should have a couple of niches that you really specialize in, right? You get really good, and that also I think allows you to optimize your gear
Yeah.
for that particular set of jobs. So your gear is directed towards weddings. I don't know what wedding videographers do. I've done a couple of weddings, but I'm not a wedding videographer. So if somebody comes and say, "Hey, can you do my wedding?" I need to know what you're expecting first before I say yes. Because maybe my gear and my skill set doesn't align with what you want. And that's the truth for everything else. I think I'm capable of doing most things
Yeah.
and doing it decently well.
Right.
But there are some things that I will do much better than anyone else can do.
Yeah.
There's some, I mean, maybe that's a huge overstatement, but there are some things
Flex
that,
if you need to.
yeah, I'm gonna flex those muscles. There's some things that I can do really well, and there's some things that I can do okay, and I'll tell you that. I am not, I wouldn't consider myself a photographer, right? I can take decent photos. I can take decent images. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a photographer. So if you come to me and say, "Hey, can you take some pictures?" I'm like, "Where I do that picture?" Right?
Right.
Because you won't put this on no billboard,
Right.
right? You saying, we ain't gonna win no like beauty
Awards,
contests
right.
awards with these pictures, right? And so and then maybe that's just my opinion, but I think you should specialize and know what you can do really well and what you can do okay, and maybe you have to be and then some of the time is a little bit of flexing, like peacocking.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, yeah man, we can do it,
Sure,
man. We can do it, man.
For sure, you have real world evidence to prove that you can do the thing you say you do.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
show someone this is the thing I've done. And
Yeah, and so many times you're
It's
like,
undeniable.
hey, can you do this? And I'm like, absolutely. And then and as soon as they're done, I go on YouTube and like, how the heck do I do
I
this?
do this? For sure.
And maybe it's not YouTube these days; it's ChatGPT.
Sure. So to bring all of this full circle for people who want like the short snippet.
Short snippet.
Yeah. If you're
going to do this, you have to figure out how to make money from it, and you have to have some level of liking for it because it's hard. Anything that's hard has to have a strong motivation behind it. Maybe the motivation is you go and grind because you want to make money. Maybe the motivation is you like it.
Yeah.
Right? Then the mindset you need to have, I think the first and most important mindset is you have to have a mindset that is willing to learn and grow. And because if, like I mentioned this to you once, that if I'm going to work with somebody, if I have to tell you consistently on multiple projects, if I have to explain every single thing to you, things that you could have gone and researched and learned on your own, if I don't feel like you have any interest in going and learning on your own, then I don't know if you're going to be as much of an asset to me, but even to yourself, as you think, or as you could be.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
Right.
And in terms of behaviors, that beginner should consider.
Well, you have to work.
Yeah.
Like you just have to repetition and reps. That's the same thing. Reps is important. Like you have to really put working. I'm almost always working. I'm almost always shooting something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's boring content for me that I probably won't ever post. And sometimes it's just doing some passion projects for friends. Sometimes it's doing passion projects for me. But if I'm not creating something, I get an itch.
Yeah.
Like I get uncomfortable. I need to be creating some.
Yeah.
I need to be shooting some.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like a shooter.
Yeah. We shoot now here.
Shoot things.
So it would not be called the Bitrate Podcast if we actually did not rate something. So out of mindset, your philosophy, reason why, and behaviors, which one would you rate as the highest or the most important? Which one would have the most weight among the trilogy
You said
of things?
So you said
Philosophy.
philosophy, which is your
why, your why, your mindset,
mindset, and behavior.
and behaviors.
100% philosophy for me. It's the why,
Yeah.
because
So how would you rate it? So we're trying to be consistent here.
like
So out of
scale of
10,
1 to 10.
yeah.
Scale of 1 to 10, your why is 10. It's
10,
it's the
okay.
first thing. It's like if you don't. I mean, if you want to do it long term, it's a 10.
Yeah.
All right. If you're doing it as a hobby, then go for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters that much. But on days when you're tired and you don't want to do it, and you are sick and you have sick kids, like you have to have a serious why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for
mindset, to be honest, that is very close, to philosophy.
so like 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give that 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And your mindset has to be really up there in terms of, especially your mindset towards growth and improving and learning.
Yeah.
And so that's why even though he introduced me as a professional, I accept it because I know my work is professional standard, but my mindset is always like, how do I improve?
Right.
How do I grow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then behaviors is like dead last. It's like 2.
I think because when you say behaviors, I'm thinking skill sets.
Yeah.
I think skill sets are like you can learn anything.
Sure.
Yeah, you can learn how to do anything. Like
Right.
I could learn how to be a mason.
Yeah, but compared to mindset and philosophy, it's probably not as important because you can learn.
It's not important because
Right.
you can learn.
You can learn. Okay.
There are some things that help you if you have some innate skills.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I
Like you're a problem
core,
solver.
I'm a problem solver,
Yeah.
and I'm a troubleshooter, and I'm a technical minded person. Because I think that's interesting how some people approach videography and photography from different, I guess, directions. Some people approach it from an art side where they're just creative and they're like art. They're very artsy,
Yeah.
and so they become a photographer or videographer, and so they create amazing.
Yeah. How can I make
Quality
this
image.
the most beautiful?
All right, but they're not
cinematic?
super technical, and so
Yeah.
if something breaks, they're like, I have no idea what to do.
Right.
And so there's some people who approach it from a technical point of view where they're like, all right, so the white balance needs to be 5600 Kelvin all
yeah.
the time. The shutter speed have to match all the time. 180-degree rule. No room for
Yeah.
for
We
nothing.
need leading lines.
We need the leading lines.
Yeah. We need to grid up and
you
Yeah.
know, the ratios and all that kind of stuff. We know all of that kind of stuff.
dialed in.
Yeah. But then it looked flat. Right? So I think I think most people come in from one of those directions, but they have to overlap.
Yeah.
They have to figure out how to get more artsy.
But all of which are
If you're
behaviors that can be learned.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Right.
Right. So you're coming from different directions maybe, but you can meet in the middle somewhere.
Sure. So a creative person
by
can
working.
learn the more technical stuff, and
Yes.
someone who's a bit more
I think so.
dialed in can go artsy. Okay.
Yeah.
So-
because maybe if you're more technical, like for me, if I'm more technical, I have to get inspirational from people who are more artistic, right? So I have to kind of surround myself with creative minded people and creative, like, artsy people, or at least I have to look at artsy work to get that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like when I'm watching movies it's so hard for me
Right, because you're constantly picking up.
because I'm looking at the cinematography, bro. I'm looking at lighting.
Yeah. You say, oh, them do that.
Yeah, I have no idea what the story's about. But I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that! Oh, look at that lighting!
Look at that.
Yeah. So maybe because I'm starting from a technical perspective, and so I'm always looking for creative inspiration and creative. I have a strong appreciation for that.
All right. So hopefully you've gotten a gist of what we're going for here. This is a cap for the first episode
Yeah.
of bit rate, but if we have life and limb, we're gonna be at it again. We're gonna see you again. I don't know when.
Yeah, we're shooting to be dropping an episode every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And we'll see how that pans out, how that plays out.
Yeah. Only if you like.
Yeah, if you're liking
And you're sharing it,
who
probably
knows?
commenting.
We might go to every week,
Who knows?
maybe 2 times a week. If
Yeah.
if it's makes sense. But at the end of the day, what we're hoping to do is provide value for people who are in the industry, just getting into the industry, maybe are in the industry and they're like, maybe I need to leave.
Sure.
You know, hopefully we're providing some helpful content from
the business side of things,
yeah.
the artsy side of things. But for now, we're going to be taking it one frame at a time until next time, next frame.
This was the Bitrate Podcast.
This was the Bitrate Podcast. All right, signing off. Yeah.
All right.
So that's F1.
That's episode. Let me see how long that was. I feel like that was like, you want to guess how long that was?
Maybe 47 minutes.
Oh, that's like an 01
47.
15 minutes.
47 minutes.
01 7 minutes.